Great guest today with a really unique perspective on this Wisconsin-Montana matchup. We're going to get into all of it, their roster, what that team is, the matchups, can Montana match up with Wisconsin size, and much, much more on today's Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Ryan Harings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode, we're breaking down that Montana basketball team, some of the highs and lows from their season, keys to the game, Monty Williams, all that and more, how they match up with Wisconsin size. First, today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Let's get into it. We got a great, phenomenal guest today. We got Ace Sourwine joining the show, color analyst, Montana men's basketball. Also does a lot of work with the Grizz radio network. Ace, I want to start here. Thank you for joining us. You grew up in Wisconsin. You are a Badgers fan, now working for Montana. How does this work for you, this matchup?
When I was watching the selection show on Sunday, after the Grizz lose, or I should say after the Badgers lose to Michigan in that Big Ten championship game, I thought, oh man, is that going to knock them down to a 4 seed? And at that point, I knew Montana was already kind of a 15, 16 seed, going to be somewhere in there between them and Robert Morris. So as I'm watching, we get the first 3 seed, it's Iowa State. And I go, okay, no Grizz there. Then we get to 2 seed Michigan State. I said, oh, is that? Nope, not us. Then we get to the Duke bracket. Duke is 1. It's going down the list. Wisconsin's on that 3 line. My ears perked up. I went, no frickin' way. Sure enough, boom, there's Montana. I let out an audible yell because I was excited. That's just fun for me. I loved the Badgers growing up. I grew up when I first really remember Wisconsin basketball. It was Orlando Tucker, Flowers, Brian Butch, Krabenhoft getting into, of course, the Final Four runs. Like I was at the national championship game against Duke in 2015 in Indianapolis, which brings up some fun memories, but also some, not so fun memories in the end. But I love the Badgers growing up. And when I saw that, it was the perfect storm for me because it's my new, it's this professional life I have with the Grizz. And I have a love for Montana now. But Wisconsin, they were my first. They were my number 1 growing up. So this has been a fun week for me.
Well, I know you're certainly very busy, obviously, with everything you do with the Grizz. But have you been able to, on the side, watch the Badgers this year? How much do you still kind of follow that team?
What's funny is I've shared this before with some friends out here, is that as big of a Badgers fan as I am, and I have, my Rose Bowl from the 90s sweatshirt and all that in my closet right now, when you're working with the Grizz, and I do play-by-play for the Lady Grizz, the women's basketball team, when you're doing that much basketball, sometimes the last thing I want to do is get home and watch more basketball. It depends on the night. So I really haven't watched a ton of Badgers up until I'd say the last month. And then I started to really, hone in because they were on that winning streak before the Oregon loss. And of course, I was following from a distance, knew about Tonje and Blackwell and how hot they've been. But yeah, not as much as I used to when I had a little more free time, I would say.
Let's shift over to the Grizz then. It's a really interesting year to me. Obviously, early season games, Oregon, Tennessee, not particularly close, but early in the year. This is a Grizz team with a lot of new pieces. And then down the stretch, 14 out of 15 victories, win the Big Sky tournament. Who is this team?
They're a team that is different from when they played Tennessee, Oregon, any of the really non-conference teams. You mentioned so many new faces. Kai Johnson, transfer, comes in. Malik Moore, transfer, he's coming in. Amari Jedkins, a Wisconsin guy, transfer, he's in. Joe Pridgen, transfer. Like there are so many transfers that had to gel. And I think that's tough when you have 1 or 2 players come in. But when you have almost an entire new roster of transfers, and sure, you had a couple pieces returning like Monty Williams, who I'm sure we'll talk about, but even Monty, his, freshman year here was plagued with injuries. So you had such a new team trying to gel together. And I think it took the non-conference slate. And there are some really bad losses in there. They look bad because Tennessee just took it to them down in Knoxville. Same with Oregon and Eugene. But I really think like that team, it's night and day compared to where they are now. They're clicking offensively. They love spreading the wealth. They have had, 7 different guys lead the team in scoring in a single game. They didn't have back-to-back guys lead the team in scoring up until just his last couple of weeks stretch. It was, Money Williams one day, Kai Johnson the next, Joe Pridgen the other day. They're so balanced, and they are at their peak form when they spread the rock. And that's really been a huge part, if not the biggest part of their success over the last couple of months in the Big Sky.
I was talking to another Badgers co-host that comes on the show, and I said, I think, if Montana makes this game close, their path to victory, an upset or a close game is through their offense, in my opinion. I think they can fill it up. You mentioned they're balanced. What stylistically do they want to do offensively?
It's going to come down. I think it's going to come down to the guards. First off, I am so excited to watch this guard battle between, of course, Tanjay and Blackwell. They are 2 of the top. I know Tanjay just got All-American honors. Fantastic player. I love watching him this year. It's going to come down to me on the perimeter for Brandon Whitney, who is a very experienced guard for the Montana Grizzlies. He's the all-time assist leader at the University of Montana, passing head coach Travis DeCure. Very, as us in the play-by-play and media business, we love those storylines when Brandon Whitney can pass his own coach. That's a great story. But with him, Money Williams, Malik Moore, Kai Johnson, and you mentioned if they're going to win or at least compete with Wisconsin, not even talk about winning maybe, I think it's going to come down to the guards, because a lot of what we've been talking about too underneath the basket, the Badgers have size, no doubt. So Joe Pridgen and Tajon Sawyer, the big guys down low, they're going to have a lot to handle with the Wisconsin guys, with Crowl and whatnot. But I do think it's going to come down to the guards. And one of them, I don't want to say, they're going to have a career day, but it does feel that way, because I'm a little worried for the Grizz that the big guys underneath will, have their numbers against Montana's front line.
Well, let's talk about one of those guards. Let's talk about Money Williams, who is probably I would say maybe the most well-known of the Grizz. It's interesting to me that a leading scorer is coming off the bench. It's not and I know he started some earlier in the year, but he's been coming off the bench. He's a leading scorer on a balanced attack. What led to that, and what makes him so difficult to deal with?
It's an interesting question. That first day where he was put to the bench, we were kind of asking ourselves, did something happen? Was there something behind the doors? But no, nothing really came out. I think it was just get a guy like that can provide a lot of scoring kind of on your second line, right? If we're equating this to hockey, but I give credit to Money. He's been starting pretty much his entire career. When he was, here in his freshman year and back in the Bay Area in high school, he's been starting the whole time. So to take that change, to go to the bench and say, whatever you need for the team, of course, I'm there. And that's what he did. And I would say he actually has excelled on that bench position as well as he has in the starting 5, if not better. I mean, he was the reserve of the year in the Big Sky Conference. And the other thing that with Money Williams, it's off the court that I do want to talk about with Money. He's had just an unbelievable year, and I mean that in a really negative way. Like he has lost both his parents within a calendar year. His mom and dad both passed away, and when that can derail a career, right? That can say, and he's got to worry about his siblings, but instead of letting that again derail his career, he stepped up and he's been great this year, and he has the love of the team. They have really rallied around him, but credit to him for what he's endured off the court and then on the court as well. Making that change, not always easy for a player like Money Williams, who's getting NBA looks. Ego can always come in as a factor that, no, I'm not going to come off the bench. No, he never said that, and I give credit to him.
Yeah, it takes a bit of selflessness to do that. Manu Ginobili, obviously, for the Spurs did that famously, but not a lot of players allow their ego to let that happen. Another guy I want to hit on, Joe Pridgen. This guy kind of fascinates me. I was watching some film on him. 6'5", but leads the team in rebounds. Athletic kid, good in transition. Shoots 63% from the field. Who is this guy? How do you shoot 63% from the field?
He loves the highlight play. Let's start there. He has been featured on SportsCenter's top 10 plays once, if not twice already this year. And if it's not been twice, he's had multiple dunks where it's been worthy of a top 10 nominee. He loves getting to the rim. He's athletic. He is really the heart and soul of this team. And he's got an interesting story off the court as well. He has bounced around. He's more of an East Coast guy. He's from the East Coast. He played at Northeastern, played at UNC Wilmington, at Holy Cross, ends up choosing Montana because his wife is originally from Montana. And he still wanted to play one more year. She wanted to move back home because they were pregnant, and he ends up becoming a dad. And he's doing this, what we thought was going to be his final year in college basketball. He ends up getting another year, so he'll be back next year, which is we're ecstatic about here with the Grizzlies. But yeah, he's got to do the double duties. He's dad plus a Division I athlete. I mean, I don't know how the guy has any free time. He probably doesn't have free time at this point. But yeah, I think it starts with the athleticism for him. And he's just fundamentally sound on top of that athleticism, which you don't really see that combination a lot, I would say. But he's been a lot of fun. I mean, we've trademarked, his dunks. They're now called, Joe Jams. That's how often it's happening. Joe Jams. Yeah. So he's been a fun player. He hasn't put up a ton of flashy numbers. Really nobody on the Grizz has, because they're just so balanced. So you look at those numbers and 63%, that jumps out to you. But outside of that, I don't know if they really scream MVP numbers, but I do believe he is the MVP of this Grizz team.
Great stuff. We're going to take a quick second for our friends of the show. Come back with Ace, talk about keys to the game and how can Montana deal with that size. We're going to get to there next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second for our friends of the show. Also, a quick second, as always, to say thank you for tuning in. Today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Monarch Money is incredible. It is like a CFO. For me, it's a personal finance assistant that brings all of your accounts, all your spending into one area. And it really helped me realize, hey, Ryan, you spend a little too much eating out. Maybe a little too much at the local IPA shop. Maybe calm it down a bit. That's what Monarch has helped me figure out. It doesn't mean get rid of that stuff, but be aware of it. Bring awareness to your finances so you can build wealth and have a better future for yourself, your partner, your family, whatever it is. Monarch is incredible. It's easy to use. It's fast. It's simple. I'm using it. My family's using it. It is a great, great setup. And right now, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. We have a great offer for our listeners of the show. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com. You get 50% off your first year. It's monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. So not only are you going to save money with the app, you're going to save money on the first year of subscription anyway. It is an incredible offer. Today's episode is also brought to you by our good friends over at Game Time. They are back. Game Time is incredible. Imagine watching your team live, surrounded by your buddies, surrounded by your team's fans. There's nothing better than that excitement and that experience of watching sports live. And Game Time, it's not just sports. We've talked about it. It's concerts, it's theaters, it's comedy, it's whatever you want. Broadway shows, you can get everything you want over at Game Time. Getting tickets should not be stressful. You can plan months in advance. You get flash deals. It is an incredibly easy to use app. I've used it on my way to a game in the cab or in the Uber. It's actually an Uber with my buddy because our tickets fell through. On the way to a Braves game, Uber, got the tickets. By the time the Uber got to the stadium, we had the tickets in hand, emailed to us. Simple, fast, cheap, easy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, let's jump back into this awesome conversation with Ace. And I really appreciate the time. Where can they find pregame, postgame, anything that you guys are doing over to cover the Grizz?
Yeah, I mean, so all week we have a radio show here in Missoula on KGRZ. KGRZMissoula.com is where that show is. It's the Daily Drive with Ace Sourwine. It's been fun for me selfishly getting to see both sides of the team that I grew up rooting for, the team that I'm working for and with now. Our coverage begins at half an hour before, so 11 a.m. Mountain Time. The voice of the Grizz, Riley Corcoran, he'll have the call for you beginning there across the Varsity Network app and our station here in Missoula, KGVL.
Let's go to here. We talked to offense Grizzlies. Defensively, the analytics, the numbers maybe don't look great for the Grizz. Is this a team that can win a game 60 to 65 maybe, or does this have to be a high-scoring game for the Grizz?
Can they? Yes, and they've done so against some Big Sky opponents, but we're not talking a Big Sky conference opponent here when you are talking about the Wisconsin Badgers. I looked to one of the first conference games down in Ogden, Utah, when they took on Weber State. That was a 63-59 win in favor of the Grizz. But again, no offense to Weber State, they're not Wisconsin. They don't have the firepower of a Tonje and a Blackwell. But so to answer your question, can they do it? Yes, but what worries me too is, watching that Big Ten championship game, my thought is, does Tonje have another one for, 13 or 14 day against Michigan? 14. Does he have another one of those days? And I just think if you look at the law of averages, probably not. Like, he has not had many back-to-back down efforts this year. So I think as a Grizz fan, just looking at the numbers there, that's what worries me the most, is that Tanje's probably due for another up instead of a down, as we saw on Sunday.
Yeah, and let's get to what I think is maybe the biggest matchup question of this game. It's Montana's size against Wisconsin's size. Now, often a lot of smaller teams will force a bigger team to go small. Maybe they'll isolate them with speed. Maybe they'll create mismatches that way. But the Badgers obviously have 7-foot Stephen Crowl, big center, broad shoulders, veteran player, 6'10", 6'11", power forward in Nolan Winter. How are the girls going to deal with this size, and is that something they've talked about?
It's a great question. I know I chatted with the voice of the Badgers, Matt LePay, on my show just actually on Wednesday on the Daily Drive. And when we chatted, I brought that up to him as well. And he said, well, yes, they got size, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a force on the glass. And he's mentioned before that, yeah, they got the size, but Wisconsin has struggled a bit in terms of rebounding now against some bigger teams in the Big Ten Conference. But he echoed that it's not a lock. It doesn't mean that they're going to beat Montana up on the glass, but you look at the numbers and just straight numbers, the rebounding averages. Joe Pridgen is just under 7 per contest at 6.9. Outside of that, you're a lot of players in the 4s, in the 3s, in the 2s. So it's a definite question. I'm sure, Coach Takir and his staff, I'm sure they have looked at it and they're analyzing what are they going to do. They haven't gone small a ton. Usually Sawyer or Pridgen will be on the floor, and most of the time they'll both be on the floor. So it will be really interesting to see what route they take. I'm not sure if you want to go small against the Badgers backcourt and try and speed them up. It's honestly a good answer, or a good question, I should say. And your guess is as good as mine at this point.
Is there anybody on the bench that has more size that maybe you pull out for a matchup like this, but hasn't played a lot in the Big Sky regular season, or no?
You could look at Jensen Bratke, who stands at 6'10". He's a redshirt freshman, from Australia. He's played, consistently. The minutes aren't there necessarily. So, in terms of going down the bench, will we see an increased role from him? Maybe, but in the Big Ten, or I should say the Big Sky tournament, he didn't play in the championship game against Northern Colorado, and he didn't play in the semifinals either. So could they? Yes, and he's a big body for sure, but he's a guy that will sit on the perimeter as well and hit a 3. So I'm not sure if he's the answer to a Crowl or not, but he would be the one, I guess, to answer that question.
Who's the X factor on this team? We talked a lot about Pridgen. We talked about Money Williams. Who's a guy, if this game is close, that Badger fans will be like, wow, I didn't see that dude coming?
I'm not sure if this really answers the question, because Kai Johnson has been really good for the Grizz, but I'll say the X factor for the Grizz overall in the offense, when Kai Johnson is on, I think the offense is clicking. We've seen some performances where Money Williams has been brilliant. He had 30+ against Tennessee in a loss, and obviously that's Tennessee, different levels of play we're talking here. But when Kai Johnson was winning, Big Sky Conference Player of the Weeks, and he was shooting the ball lights out, that's when it felt to me the Grizzlies were at their best. So if you want to go X factor in terms of maybe the guy that really stirs the pot, or if he's playing well, the team plays well, I'd go with Kai Johnson, senior guard, number 1.
Two more quick questions here. Zooming out from the team a little bit. How do you think Montana fans are going to travel? Is this a game that you expect a pretty good Montana contingent to be at?
I think so, yeah. So Missoula, I love Missoula. Missoula is one of my favorite cities. For those who don't know, that's the University of Montana. We're here in Missoula, Montana. the airport, as much as I love Missoula, the airport can kind of be an issue because they only have so many direct flights out of here. But one of the direct flight options is Denver. And I think there is going to be a good crowd. Now, I'm going to be staying back here in Missoula, running the shows and whatnot. So I looked at flights, just curious. I said, what's it going to cost? It was going to be about, $950 for a round trip down to Denver. But I think that's also because a lot of Grizz fans jumped on that right away. So I'm expecting a good crowd, and I know there's plenty of alumni down in the Denver area as well.
Last question here. A lot of people make a big deal of this, and some people say, no, that's hogwash. Is the altitude thing real for a team coming from Wisconsin to Denver? Is that actually something that Badger fans need to worry about? Because some really are, and others are saying, don't worry about it.
Well, so you can almost say Missoula in the same way. They're in the same boat. So you think of Missoula and Montana in the mountains. We are in the mountains, but Missoula's in a valley, and our elevation, I believe, is 3,200. So they're flying, they're going up to another 2,000 feet of elevation. I think it does play a factor. Now, what's funny about Montana's schedule is we play Northern Arizona every year, and that's in Flagstaff, Arizona. Flagstaff is at 7,000 feet above sea level down in Northern Arizona. So, yes, it does play a factor. And with Wisconsin's, short turnaround, who knows? Does that play more of a factor? It could, but I'm going to go back to Matt LePay on my show, on Wednesday. He said, nobody cares when you start playing. So I guess I'll just echo Matt LePay there.
Yeah, and by the way, Flagstaff's beautiful. I spent a summer in Flagstaff. My dad went to college there. One of the coolest towns in America that people don't get to.
Summer town, winter town, you can do both. I think the dream scenario, Ryan, would be you live in Phoenix in the winter and then you live in Flagstaff in the summer, like 3 hours separate one. And, of course, if we had endless money where I could get a house in both Phoenix and Flagstaff.
I was going to say, you always need endless money to get a house in Flagstaff at this point. But yes, incredible place. I love that drop. He is Ace Sourwine. I really do appreciate the time. Badger fan, and now working with the Grizz is going to be a great game for him to watch, I'm sure, as he's kind of torn in both directions. Thank you so much for the time, man, and I hope you have a great rest of the week and a great tournament time.
Thank you, Ryan. Have fun. Hey, it's the best time of the year, so enjoy watching basketball the next 4 days, huh?
Great stuff from Ace. And listen, I think the Montana offense can keep up for a while. They have a very, very potent group of scorers and shooters. But I'm going to tell you why, as a Badger fan, I'm not as worried as maybe some other Badger fans are heading into this matchup. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second for our friends of the show. Coming back into the fold, 5-hour energy. Let's go. Listen, daylight savings snuck up on me. Maybe it snuck up on a lot of you. And if you're feeling that you lost maybe that hour of sleep, 5-hour energy has your back. That extra sunshine means more time for fun, but also more time where you got to get some stuff done that you got to boost through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament, that's going to be me, squeezing in another round of golf, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, being a dad, a father, a husband, a wife. We got kids, we got jobs, we got honey-do lists, whatever it is. 5-hour energy is going to help you power through and give you a refreshing pickup wherever you need it. It's incredibly convenient, easy to grab. 5-hour energy helps you stay refreshed, even if you're watching basketball, getting some golf in, extra activities, whatever it is. 5-hour energy is here for you on those longer days. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, peach, mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5-hour energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized over at 5-hour energy.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, let's talk about this one. So that was a great rundown of Montana's team, and I really appreciate Ace for jumping in. But here's why, despite Money Williams can scare you. Money Williams can go for 30. Pridgen shooting 63%. This team is 114 of 15. They have some length and physicality at the guard spots. But I go back to a couple things. I think the size is a massive problem for them. And I know traditionally this hasn't been a great Wisconsin rebounding team at times. They pounded Michigan on the glass. They got, I think, 15 offensive rebounds. Nolan Winter is a really good situational rebounder, slicing in, getting offensive rebounds. I don't know how they're going to deal with that. I think This is a Badger team that's better than last year's team that lost to JMU in round 1. And it's a Montana team that I don't think is quite as good as that JMU team athletically. Some of the things that they gave the Badgers issues with, the way they pressed out defensively, the way they forced Wisconsin's offense to initiate further out. You watch film on Montana, they don't do as much of that. I think the Badgers are going to be pretty comfortable offensively. I think they're going to have size that they can go to. They're going to be able to generate easier shots because of it. And ultimately, when I take the pulse of Badger Nation, when I hear people talking about this team, I feel like Badger fans are kind of on pins and needles, and it's mostly, someone said this in the Discord, I think it's absolutely correct. I think Badger fans are scared to death because of last year. They have PTSD from that Wisconsin-JMU matchup, and I'm just here to tell you, last year doesn't mean anything this year. Virginia was a 1 seed, lost to a 16 seed. Y'all remember that? What did they do the next year? What did Virginia do the very next year? They won a title. Last year has nothing to do with this year. Anything can happen in sports. 14 seeds beat 3 seeds. It happens. They could get hot. Montana could get crazy hot. Wisconsin could be crazy cold. Those things happen. But I'm telling you, be confident in this team. This is a really good Badgers team. They've proven it over the course of the entire season. And I don't think this Montana team, while they can score, they're not as good as a JMU team, in my opinion. So be confident in this team. I think they're going to win against Montana. I think they're probably going to win against BYU or VCU. I think they're going to the Sweet 16. And from there, who knows, right? There, if you catch a heater from 3, you can shoot your way into the Elite 8. But be confident in this team because I think they're really good. The other part of this that I think is maybe not talked about or discussed enough, that Badgers team that lost to JMU, a lot of those guys are back, right? Blackwell, Klesmit, Crowl, Winter, McGee, Gilmore, obviously great guard, and that coaching staff outside of Penny. And Penny was there. A lot of these guys are back. I don't think they're going to lose back-to-back years as a 5 seed and then a 3 seed in the first round of a tournament, knowing what that would mean. It would erase so much of what they've done the last 2 years. I think there's going to be an intangible edge there. I think they're still a little ticked off. I think they're a little ticked off they didn't get Milwaukee. I think they're a little ticked off they lost as a 5 seed last year and were called questionable all year, that they were picked to be 12th in the Big Ten this year. I don't think they're going to allow themselves to lose. I just don't. This is Tanjay's last year. Again, go back to last year. AJ Storr was shopping around for his next team at this point. This year, Tanjay is locked in. It's his last year of college ball. I think they're too big. I think they're a little too deep. I think they've been battle tested. Certainly Montana down the stretch won 14 and 15, but they haven't been battle tested like Wisconsin. They didn't play Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan, Illinois down the stretch. It's no disrespect to the Big Sky, but like it's a different type of battle when you're punching back and forth against Michigan, Purdue, Michigan State, UCLA, Illinois. Like Wisconsin finished pretty strong, played really well in the Big Ten tournament. I think that momentum carries forward. They're healthy. Klesmit's back. That's the other thing. Look at this team without Klesmit and with Klesmit. With Klesmit, they're a different animal. They're a completely different animal. They've showed it before he got hurt and after he got hurt. So I think this is with Klesmit, this is maybe a 2 seed. And they have that level. They have that gear in them. I don't think Montana can match them. It's no disrespect to Montana at all. They don't have the size to match up with the Badgers. And I don't think their guards can keep Blackwell and Tanjay out of the paint. Now, Montana shoots really well. They can stay in it. Wisconsin has had issues at times containing perimeter shooters. Montana will bang some shots, but ultimately I think they're too big. I think they're too battle tested. I think they're too good. I think they're too deep. I think they're going to win. Again, all due respect to Montana, I don't think Badger fans need to be as freaked out about this as they are, because last year doesn't mean anything for this year. Just remember that. Last year does not mean anything for this year, okay? Last year's last year, this year's this year. This Badgers team is better than last year's team. And I think they're poised for a run, guys. So fire up. It's March Madness. Wisconsin, Montana. Let's get it. And I'm so excited for it. I will be here after the show for a good or hopefully not bad post-game reaction on Wisconsin. And we will definitely talk later. When you're done here, go check out the Locked On Big Ten channel. On Wisconsin, we will talk later.